Well, hello there. Welcome to Watcha Reading. I'm Keenan, and I'll be your host. I have a letter today from a girl named Maria who lives in Seattle, Washington. Let's see what she's reading. Dear Keenan, I recently read a book called Thank You, Mr. Falker, and found it so interesting and powerful. I love how kind and compassionate Mr. Falker was to Tricia in the book. Can you talk more about the book and show us what it's like to be an English teacher? Thank You, Mr. Falker was actually one of my favorite books growing up. I remember reading it when I was in elementary school. This story summarizes basic human kindness that an elementary school teacher had on Tricia. Mr. Falker teaches Tricia how to read when she reaches the 5th grade, and her experience with him changes her life forever. Patricia Polacco gives us a vivid picture about what literature is all about. I think I know just the person to bring in. We'll be back. Welcome back. Today we have Dr. Jill Swiencicki, who is an English professor here at St. John Fisher. She is joining me to talk about her English journey as well as her love for her students. Hi, Dr. Jill. How are you?
So good to see you, Keenan. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. So today our book is Thank You, Mr. Falker by Patricia Polacco. And this is a book about a teacher who had an impact on a student. And I thought that you would be perfect to talk a little bit more about your journey as a teacher and as a professor here at St. John Fisher. So we're so glad to have you.
Thank you.
So my first question is for you is, what drew you to be a college professor?
Yes, you know, it started early on. I remember having a great AP English teacher, and I think Mrs. Wingarden. And she used to bring in big, just like cartons of grapes and fruit, and we'd all come up and get some food. And then we would break down whatever novel we were reading that day or short story. And it felt so comfortable and so good. And it felt significant and like exciting. She just created a space where we could all have our takes and impressions. And sometimes the conversations got so heated, we were all talking over each other. And I felt like literature mattered, that figuring out the role of art and how art helps say something about our culture and our cultural moment, that it helps us understand our feelings and emotions, it creates community. All of that was happening while we were eating fruit and talking together, and I just remember thinking, like, I wanna do this. I wanna be that person who's creating this experience around literature. And that was like one part of it. I was also recognized for my writing and recognized for the analysis, and that felt really good. To be kind of singled out or told, you're kind of good at this. But I remember my parents taking me on college tours and walking around campuses thinking, I never want to leave here. Like, a campus, a college is one of the most beautiful cultural spaces that we have. And I want to be here my whole life, not just for the 4 years that I'm going to be at school. Like, I want to be in higher education, a place that's totally organized by learning, by being curious, not judgmental, by being open to perspectives that are different from your own, being challenged, and having to, second guess the facts that you're working on and the presumptions, and having to either defend them or grow through maybe being wrong. I just wanted to be part of higher ed, and so that just became more and more confirmed throughout my experience in it. And here I am still, 30 years later.
That's amazing. And how long have you been here at St. John Fisher?
I just celebrated my 15th year here.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. I started my career at Cal State in Chico, California, and then moved here, and it's been wonderful here.
That's amazing. Would you say there's a favorite book that you have, or a play, or that you like to read?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, there's so many. Barbara Kingsolver is a really special American novelist, and her book Flight Behavior was the first time I had read a narrative about climate change that was so gripping and compelling, but also offered a kind of hope. I loved Chimamanda Adichie and her novel Americana, about migration and about race in America. I could go on, so I'll stop pretty soon. But I try to reread Toni Morrison's Beloved every year, thinking about ghosts and thinking about some of our race relations and histories that still haunt us. I just read a great book called Northwoods about a house, a history of a house. Have you read it?
I have heard of it. I've heard great things about it. I want to read it too.
You need to read it. It's incredible. And then my roommate in graduate school, Lily King, just has a new book out called Heart the Lover. And I read, of course, everything that Lily writes, but it's she understands love, and she understands the ways that love endures even through death, across time, and she writes it so beautifully. So that's kind of what I'm reading lately.
That's wonderful. So I have to ask, being a college professor, how meaningful do you think literature is to college students and the educational system in general?
I mean, I think it is so important to self-development. I can't imagine like growing up without having these amazing protagonists sort of teach me, being like my imaginative models for who I could be. I remember going to the library in middle school and finding those Judy Blume books and just reading about kids my age and what they were going through. So there's a way in which it offers us these imaginative models for who we want to be. It tells us a little bit about the cultural moment we live in, and it can do it maybe a little bit more optimistically or idealistically than what we're living through. It helps us go back in time and understand our place in time. So, I mean, for me, I feel like integrating reading and literature into your life is really about understanding yourself, but also, you know, how it fits into the human consciousness and sort of the struggles around suffering, grief, love, the big themes in life, right? Obviously, we've seen the data that reading is declining. People feel less and less like literature is part of their lives. But then there's book talk, right? There's places on social media where you see that people are convening around romance novels or sci-fi or fan fiction. So I feel like it's alive in these niches, but I'm proud to be someone who's trying to keep the tradition of, you know, arguing that literature matters alive.
Right. I know one of my favorite films growing up was Dead Poets Society with Robin Williams, and
So good.
I thought it was cool the way he encouraged his students to value literature and to talk about the subjects of love, grief, and happiness. And I just found that film so powerful. It's kind of like we were in the English teacher perspective, and I found that really interesting.
Do you rewatch it? Do you rewatch those films that you love?
I do. I've seen Dead Poets Society 3 times now, and I first watched the film, I probably shouldn't have done this, but when my grandmother first passed away last year. And so it actually encouraged me in a way to battle my grief and, you know, to value literature and how powerful it can be in the world. And I love Robin Williams. I've always loved Robin Williams. So I thought it was special to, you know, kind of relate to the characters a little bit in the film and, you know, kind of see what I can take from it, you know, to see how literature can make the world a better place and how I can make the world a better place through literature. So I always thought that was really special.
Yeah, I love that. He is such a charismatic professor there. Have you read like much Whitman?
While Whitman,
Thoreau?
not as much as I'd
all those
like.
guys that he was kind of talking about?
Well, my uncle, who's an opera singer, he has read lots of songs and poems that Walt Whitman has written. So I've learned a little bit through my uncle about Walt Whitman and other opera singers, but I want to get more into Walt Whitman and his stories and his poems.
Okay, I got you.
So I'm really excited for that.
Okay. Next week I'll drop off a few a few books.
Oh, I love
you.
that. Thank you so much. So what have you learned about yourself being a college professor in your time here?
I really have learned about being a good listener and trying to design courses and assignment sequences and activities that are really meeting my students where they are. So not kind of over planning, but really trying to understand who I'm in relationship with and building through that. I try to think a lot about relevance. What makes the study of rhetoric, the art of persuasion, relevant for right now? What makes the study of antebellum American literature relevant for right now? How can we meet the political and social and environmental moments that we're in through some of my expertise? And I'm always trying to find areas of relevance. So those are a few ways I would start approaching that question.
Right. And so you've worked with many kids throughout your time here, I can imagine. Have they made a difference in your life, would you say, in any sort of way?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So many of those students who are the first in their families to attend college, and just watching just the grit of how they managed to get through despite really having family support, that are supportive but maybe don't quite get it. Yeah, that would be really one example. Students who are just so interested in the expertise that I have to share that they want to go on to grad school in it. So, being a mentor, there's just so many ways to try to, help develop students to where they need to go, whether it's more of an empathetic approach or a mentoring approach or, those would be some ways.
So our book, Thank You, Mr. Falker, it was one of my favorite books growing up as a child. And I would say it gave me a lot of hope because, I had a little trouble reading growing up when I was in elementary school. And I became better at it over time, and now I love literature so much.
That's great.
But I thought the influence that Mr. Falker had on Tricia in the book was so meaningful. Like, he changed her life in so many ways. And I think that regardless if you're a teacher or an educator at all, you should always find ways to make a difference in someone's life. So I always found that really powerful. And you read the book at a point in your life, and I know you like Patricia Polacco. So I thought that was special.
She is so great at that relationship with Tricia and Mr. Falker. She's so good at cross-generational caretaking relationships. She's so great at adults really seeing kids, both in this book, but also like we were talking about Thunder Cake, that there's always adults saying, in the case of that book, I see that you're scared. Let me find ways to show you that I've got you. Mr. Falker saying, I see you learn differently than others. Let me adjust the way that we work so that I can, wrap some support around you. I really feel like she is so good at bringing the cross-generational moment of visibility that can be what learning is all about. I see you, I can meet that need. We can grow together. I'm not, as a teacher, he's not perfect. There's growth for everybody, I think, in a good learning relationship.
Absolutely. And, the world we live in today, there's a lot of issues and things going on. How important do you think kindness and compassion is today?
People don't use that word a lot right now. That's an interesting word that you're bringing up. I feel like if we think about the problems of, growing authoritarian leadership worldwide, the decline or backsliding of democracy, where we think about, the persistence of a kind of extraction economy with the burning of fossil fuels, despite what we know, where we think about these really giant structural problems that are happening globally. We think of kindness as an arrow in the quiver that would maybe be like a broken arrow. Like, how could kindness ever, attack issues so entrenched and complicated and hard? And, but when I think about the Buddhist tradition of loving kindness, when I think about people like the monk Thich Nhat Hanh, his friendship with Martin Luther King, the ways in which kindness is an essential part of the work of justice, the work of seeking to, include and expand rights for all. It's foundational. Kindness is about walking alongside, not imposing, not leading. It's not top down. It's about alignment. It's about listening. It's about respect and keeping people's dignity. It's about curiosity, not judgment. I feel like there's so few narratives, like kindness narratives lately in popular culture. Ted Lasso keeps coming to mind. I don't know if you've ever heard of that show.
I've heard of him, definitely heard of him.
But I would say that that's like the dominant trope of that show is like the radical power of kindness in a broken space. What kindness can do in a broken space. And that would actually be a really important class to have, at Fisher, is a course on it might be philosophy, it might be interdisciplinary, like philosophy, religious studies, literature, what is a philosophy of kindness? How has it been talked about and enacted? Because I think, finally, kindness isn't, it's like a disposition, but it has to be accompanied by action for it not to, diminish.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I don't know. What do you think? Where did that word come up for you?
Kindness and compassion?
Mm-hmm.
I think...
Was it just from the Polacco?
Yeah, well, that was one of the central messages of the story, but I am somebody who has always tried to find meaningful content that showed kindness and compassion. I'm just drawn to characters and stories that demonstrate it. And on TV shows too, I'm a big fan of Fred Rogers, and he necessarily didn't talk about his kindness as much, but also he demonstrated it very well.
Totally, that's a great example.
So sometimes you have to demonstrate it to show kindness, not necessarily talking about it all the time, and I think that's a really powerful way of doing it. And not just Fred Rogers, but LeVar Burton and Bob Ross, and there's many. And there's kindness stories every day that we don't necessarily see on the news.
Yeah.
So we have to, find those good people and, rely on them. And, we do our part to make the world a better place. So I've always found that as a powerful tool.
Yeah.
So my final question for you is, if you could give the world one message, what would it be and why would you give that message?
There's so many messages. As my kids will say, I have no end of advice. I really think it's just so important to bet on yourself and to believe in yourself and your dreams. I know that sounds so cliched, but really write down and journal the way you see yourself in a flourishing life and making a difference in that life, and take the steps to make it happen. It might be very slow, but I came from a family where there were no educators and there was no path for the simple thing I wanted to do, which was get a PhD and be an educator. And it just was a long path, and it was filled with so many challenges on every level. And I had so much imposter syndrome. But slowly, if you kind of break the path down into its chunks, find your mentors, just believing in yourself and going for the big dream is really worth it. And it's worth it for our communities.
I would agree, for sure. And literature, going back to literature, I think it's one of the most powerful tools that people underestimate today. For example, my grandmother, who I mentioned passed away last year, she never really learned to read fully in a good way. And my grandfather never learned to read either. Because, back then, they didn't see the point of, being literature, being, important in life. So I think it's important that we, you as an educator and as a student, we encourage people to read more, to get out of their comfort zone more. I think it's important to do that in society.
I think so too. And I do see a lot of students at Fisher sort of doing the opposite, like, I'm gonna take X major because I think it'll get me a job quicker. Oh, really, what do you like about it? I don't know if I really like it. It just seems practical or pragmatic. I feel like we owe ourselves something bigger than that, and it will really have ripple effects for happiness, for self-kindness, kindness to others. So I would sort of take the big swing.
Oh, I love that answer. I love that answer. And thank you for being you. I know we're so grateful to have you here at St. John Fisher.
Thank you so much, Keenan.
Well, thank you so much for coming on Watcha Reading. I know it's such an honor to have you here today.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
That's all the time we have on today for Watcha Reading. Thank you for joining me today. As we say goodbye, remember, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. Your words matter, your actions echo, and every small act of kindness makes a difference. From all of us here, thank you for watching, and take care of one another. Bye now.